Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. I am the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, the master of the deceptive arts, and I return once again as the secure voice of the vasectomites. And in the name of security, today I wanted us to talk about risk and the taking of chances, gambling, as you can see in the picture, and of course the captions that come along with the picture. And I asked the question, is dating like gambling? And you're going to love today's edification. I'm looking at it right now for a later slide. And it's pretty much detailing the behaviors and characteristics of gambling addiction. And you are going to see so much of yourself when it comes to your dating patterns being fully described here in this edification. Everything from mood swings to financial problems to using your habit to provide excitement and even a zest of happiness. It's all happening right there in the gambler's and the risk taker's mind. And I have to ask myself, how different really is a gambler from a person who is in the romance world, for somebody who's dating, for these knee benders and these counterparts? And I would say they're very much the same. They're very, very much the same. If you compare those people that are out there dating, who haven't frozen their sperm, who didn't get a vasectomy, and they're out there dating with no frozen sperm and no vasectomy. I mean, just the risk, like, even if you're not getting a vasectomy, the risk of not freezing your sperm. I mean, what happens if you catch an STI and then you decide you want to have kids or something like that, and now you're just risking transmutation, right? Transmission, you know. And so in other words, you're risking passing it on and making it worse, right? Not just for the counterpart, but perhaps even for your kids. You know, there are kids that are born with crippling, life-threatening diseases that are inherited from their parents, right? The consequences are just catastrophic for not freezing your sperm as well as not getting a vasectomy. As you might surmise from the briefness of our encounters and conventions, I'm not a person who advocates for taking any type of risk or engaging in any type of risky behavior. Now, this is not to imply that there is no risk. There's a risk in living life every day, just doing everyday normal things. There's an absolute risk in that, right? As they say, you could walk across the street and get hit by a bus, even though you're not going to get hit by a bus. This just implies that what they know is that, bus drivers are fairly good drivers, and buses have very low accident rates. But even still, with a very good driver and low accidents rate and broad daylight, clear visibility, and the chances of nothing happening, something can still happen, right? I'm not oblivious to the risks of life. What I'm against is myself taking deliberate actions, that are risky, engaging in for instance, alcohol consumption, getting inebriated, and driving a car. I mean, it's one thing engaging in the alcohol consumption. It's another getting inebriated, having a good time with a counterpart, taking someone home you don't even know. It's another thing driving while doing it. Like things like that, um, I'm not okay with. I'm not, now. This is not to imply that I haven't made mistakes in my life. It is to imply that I'm not keen on repeating those mistakes. Whereas you might encounter a knee bender who has been drinking and driving every single weekend of his life since he was a teenager, all the way up through to his adulthood, right? And this is the kind of thing, that I don't support. I don't support taking professional risks, physical risks, and especially financial risks. And the irony is that we live in a world where people are encouraged to be risk takers and chances, especially when it comes to finances. And I cannot tell you how illogical taking financial risks is. Ask yourself this question: who benefits from you being risky with your money? If you are secure and sound and safe with your money, in other words, you're saying that I'm prioritizing my savings. I will spend if I need to spend. Of course, I'll spend lavishly if I need to spend lavishly, of course. But if I don't have to spend, I won't spend. And if I can increase my savings, I will increase my savings. This without denying myself any of the things that make life worth living, or that make that life that's worth living comfortable while you're living it, right? I'm not against that. What I am against is taking your hard-earned money and giving it away to other people. Just giving it away to them with nothing in return. With nothing in return. You may have heard someone say something absurd and nonsensical like no risk, no reward. Do you know how insane that sounds to a logical person like myself? And I'm going to explain why. I'm going to give you a detailed explanation as to why this kind of thing is absurd. They'll tell you something like, oh, the bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Let me tell you something. If somebody says something to you that rhymes, ignore it, right? If somebody says to you something like fun and fitness, ignore them. Ignore them. There's no fun in fitness, man. I work on my fitness every single day in my health. And there's a point where there's no fun in it. And that point is about 2 minutes in to an hour's worth of running. At 2 minutes, there's no fun in it anymore. It's all just work, physical, hard work, where you need to be focused and diligent and just get it done. There's no fun. There's no fun in fitness. That kind of nonsense, man. If it rhymes, if somebody says something to you that rhymes, just know that they really didn't think it through. They thought about it in a shallow way, and now they're selling it to you. And you are treating this thing, no risk, no reward, like it's the gospel truth. And you're making a terrible mistake. And I'm going to prove it to you in a logical, concise, and undeniable way, in a way that even you can analyze for yourself, and see how absurd this thing is. But again, like, you have to ask yourself, who benefits from receiving your investments, right? And if there are companies, like think about what these shares are telling you. If your company is so valuable, why sell it? Why sell pieces of it? Why sell chunks of it? No one is going to sell something from their company that's valuable. For instance, a diamond company will sell you a diamond and then they'll sell you shares in their company. They won't give you anything of value. They won't give you anything of value. They'll sell you something. So, on the one hand, they're selling you a diamond, which is a farce, by the way. It's just a stone. Yeah, it's just a stone. And there are places in the world that are just riddled with diamonds. It's just a stone, right? And I'll prove that to you also right now, as since I'm here. You cannot eat a diamond. You cannot wear a diamond. You cannot use a diamond to keep you warm. You cannot use a diamond to build a house. You cannot use it. There's not a single situation where anybody ever thought, hey, let's take a diamond and use it to build a house. It's not practical for that type of purpose. In fact, quite frankly, diamonds are impractical for almost every type of human activity except showing off. The only practical purpose of having a diamond is showing off. The same way it is the only practical purpose of having shares. I'm telling you God's honest truth, you're never going to get rich of shares. You're never going to get rich of those shares, right? If you believe, if you believe that we haven't gotten, if you believe that you're going to get rich of these things. Let me just complete my thoughts. I have like 1,000 different thoughts flying in my head, and I haven't completed the first one nor the second one, and I'm already on the third one. Let me go back. If you believe that you're going to make money off shares, off of risk, off of taking chances, then you haven't gotten off, and you haven't gotten rid, and you haven't been cured of your delusions, of your male delusions. And sometimes I wonder, in truth, if we ever will. Let's 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 look at this word. I'm gonna sigh before I even say it because it's just absurd. It's just absurd that people would encourage other people to act in this way and think in this way. Let me just stop being mysterious and tell you what it is. Let's look at the word gambling. What does the word gambling mean? It means wagering something of value. So you have something of value. You have this cash money. You have your savings, right? And you wager it, you gamble it, you take a chance on it, on a random event with the intent of winning something else of value, where instances of strategy are completely discounted. I'm like, what? Just think about this again. So you are taking something of value and you are wagering it on a random event. So you're saying that you're gonna wake up tomorrow and it's gonna snow and have a rainbow on the same day in the same place. It could happen. It could happen. But the likelihood that you just predict that, let's say you predicted today where it's raining and there's a little bit of snow. Okay, there's a possibility. But had you predicted this 10 years ago and said, today on the 3rd of October, blah, 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 there will be snow and a rainbow at this particular place. And then we all went there, and then just like clockwork, there it is, the rain, the snow, right? Now that would be an astronomical prediction, right? But that's what you're saying. You're saying you're going to take your money and put it on the weather. 10 years from now, the weather on a specific day 10 years from now, and you are hoping that you are going to get something in return. You're hoping you're going to make a profit in return of this. And I'm here to tell you that's not going to happen. The fact that the actions themselves are random, and whatever strategy you are trying to put in place is completely discounted and null and void, to me is a guarantee of loss. Sun Tzu says, put yourself beyond the possibility of defeat before you engage in the war. He says the general who makes many calculations in his head before he goes in is going to be victorious. Right? He who seeks the victory first, then fights, right? Rather than he who fights and then seeks victory. This is what you're doing. You're throwing your money in there and then hoping for a victory instead of having a victory and then putting your money on that. There are your savings. There's a savings account that's available to you, and they won't do anything with your money. You put your money in there, you put your money in there, and you keep putting your money in there, and I promise you they won't touch it. They're not allowed to. And anytime you want your money back, they'll give it to you. Right? Another meaningful definition of the word gamble is to take risky action in hope of a desired result. Right? And we're gonna look at that word risky. Right? A risky action undertaken with the hope of success. Right? Now you might be saying, well, that's what no risk, no reward literally means. So you put in the risk, right? You put in the money, you take the risk, and at the end you get the result randomly. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're gonna randomly get a result where strategy, planning, thinking, consideration, calculation are completely out of the window. This is your plan? You're gonna randomly become successful? No, you're gonna randomly become homeless. You're gonna randomly become homeless. Let's look at this word risk for what it really is. Now, I told you this whole idea of no risk, no reward is nonsense. And this is why. This is why it tells me that you don't know what a risk is. It tells me that you don't know what words mean and you are using them haphazardly in any kind of situation. Just listen to what the word risk means. A risk is a situation. It's a very short definition. It's a situation involving exposure to danger. A situation involving exposure to danger. All you have done by taking a risk is expose yourself. You've opened yourself up fully for danger to knock you down. Now, does that sound like the prudent thing to do? Does that sound like you're going to get a reward at the end of it? When you expose what you're saying by being a gambler, by being a chancer, is that you are going to open yourself up to danger, not close yourself up to danger, not remove the danger, not you're going to welcome the danger into your life and hope that with that danger there, somehow you will emerge victorious. Are you insane? Are you out of your mind? How does this make sense to you? How does taking yourself out of a safe, productive, well lit, and clean environment and putting yourself in a dingy, dirty, dark, and dangerous place, how does that elevate you into success? Can you tell me how you come from putting yourself into danger openly? Openly. How do you somehow then emerge triumphant and successful on the other side? Doesn't it stand to reason that when you open yourself up to danger, you open yourself up to losses? This is what I hear. When I hear danger, I don't hear excitement. I hear threat. I hear fear of loss, fear of harm. I hear run away in my own mind. You hear risk and you think reward. How? How is a danger simultaneously a reward? How do you justify this in your head? I mean, does that sound sane, logical, and reasonable to you? These things are literally a contradiction. Risk has nothing to do with reward. That's like saying, I'm going to jump into the fire and hope to lose weight. How? You're going to get burned. It doesn't make any sense, right? I'm going to open my gate up to the lions and let them walk right into my house, 10 hungry lions, and at the end of that, I'm going to gain muscles. What? How? How do you come from giving your money away to a complete stranger who you only saw on TV? How do you get from I'm going to give my money to this corporation and this complete stranger and later on I'm going to become rich? You're mad. You're out of your mind. You're completely out of your mind. To put yourself in a situation that includes financial danger, physical danger, or professional danger. Does that make any sense to you? Obviously, this is not wise. And yet, your most trusted financial advisor, the person you put your financial faith on, encourages you to endanger your money. The money that you slaved for and labored for and toiled for years and years, sometimes decades. And you're going to put that money on a company that one, you don't run. Two, you don't manage. Three, you never ever visited their head office and you never will. And if you did visit them at their head office, they wouldn't let you anywhere near it, let alone near the CEO. And even still, if you somehow manage to get inside, somehow manage to wiggle your way into the building, they'd have you detained and arrested. And you know I'm right. I mean, you think I'm joking? You have shares in a bank. Go walk into that bank and tell them that you want to have a cup of coffee on the 13th floor because you're a shareholder. Just one cup of coffee, couple of teaspoons of sugar, no milk, and just walk out. Well, I take milk with mine, but some people don't. And just walk out. They'll have you arrested. They'll have you arrested. But then you gave over your money. You paid over your money to these people. Money that you will never see again. Or so that you could call yourself a shareholder. What does that even mean? You don't even know what a shareholder is. You never met a single shareholder in your life. Not only that, have a look at the people that you take your health advice from. All of them are on steroids. I mean, just look at those people, man. Look at those arms. They are literally shining. Steroid people, they have these tremendous muscles, but even when they got nothing on, they just shine. They always look like they're sweating or something, even when they haven't been to the gym. And the people you take professional advice from are all unemployed. They're all talking on their phone all day long to everyone who actually has a job. And what are they telling you to do? They're telling you to quit your job. They're telling you to take a risk. In other words, they're telling you to put yourself in danger. This is what you're doing all day long. Then you look at the people that you take relationship advice from. Oh, don't get me started on those people. The people that you take relationship advice from, Not a single one of them has been able to make a single relationship work. Just think about that. The people that are giving relationship advice, all of them have failed. Not just in one or two relationships, they have failed in each and every single one of their relationships. It doesn't matter how many they've had. It doesn't matter if they've had two or 200. All failed. All failed. And the ones that were able to sort of make it work and make it last, none of them have been able to sustain the love, the joy, the support, the loyalty that they promised each other and the vow that they made in front of God and family. Then, of course, there are those that are giving advice, the divorced men, you know, the born again bachelors, he who returns, and these could possibly be the worst of them all. The divorced men and the divorced women, oh, they are out here giving dating advice. You are 50 years old. You are 50 years old. You haven't dated in 30 years. Think about what I'm telling you. The last time you dated, you were in your 20s when you actually believed in love and you were wrong. 3 decades has went by. One generation, 2 generations. And now you are back to date people that are old enough to be your grandchildren. I'm not lying to you. Let's do the numbers. Let's do the numbers for the divorced men and the divorced women. Let's do the numbers. Let's say hypothetically you were 22 years old when you had your first child. And then 22 years later, you are now 44 years old. And that first child is 22 years old and they have their first child. At 45 years old, you are old enough to be somebody's grandparents. I'm going to say that again. At 45 years of age, you are now a senior citizen. You're not an adult. You're a senior citizen. You're old enough to be somebody's grandparents. Truly, think about it. And at 66, you're old enough to be a great grandparent. This is how biology works. And these are the people. These are the people you're taking dating advice from. You're taking dating advice from your grandparents. Just think about that. And then you're a grandparent starting a channel giving dating advice. Now listen, I'm not going to judge you, but I'm going to judge you. Right? I'm not going to do it out loud, but I'm going to tell you. You're too old for this nonsense, man. You're too old for this nonsense by decades. And after decades of getting it completely wrong, right? From how you dated back then to who you were when you were married, and then the calamity and the catastrophe and pandemonium of your divorce, you got it completely wrong. I mean, these men are recovering from decades of capitulation, of compromise, of providing, of protecting, of bills, of kowtowing, of bending the knee to the ego of a colossal loser. And now you have returned to tell us who did not bend the knee, who knew not to bend the knee for the first time. You've come to tell us not to bend the knee. Oh, really? Oh, how grateful we should all be for telling us what we already know. What you seem to miss the first time around. What you all seem to miss the first time around, now you've come to make corrections and addendums in your life story. And we all have to sit there and tolerate it. It's absurd, man. But now look at the condition that you were in. Right? Some of you are still paying that alimony, giving dating advice. Some of you are still on child support. Some of you are on child support for stepkids, still giving dating advice. Not to mention the lawyer fees. But it gets worse. Some of these guys, they're still paying a bond for a house they don't live in anymore. And here they are. And here they are giving dating advice, telling us never mind all of the calamity, an entire life spent in failure. The first bit of your life before your 20s, you were a child under your parents' control and they were able to prevent you from your failures. Then they let you go and it was a catastrophe. 20s, 30s, 40s, and now here you are in your 50s, telling everyone what to look for in a man. Give me a break. Telling everybody, no, don't trust these counterparts. Oh, really? Oh, really? And yet here you are, still out there with no vasectomy. Just think about the situation you're in. The guy is paying bills right now. You're still like even if you can say my child support is finished, okay, now you still gotta pay for all. You gotta still support this person to live because they don't have anything but childhood experience. So you still gotta support them. You still gotta help them get a job. You still gotta get them a place to live. It's not just okay. They're 18 now. We're done. No, no, you gotta pull this off until they're 21 and able to stand on their own 2 feet. Otherwise, they just keep coming back home. These are the people you're taking advice from. Just think about that. What is the risk of taking advice from somebody like that? Isn't that as big a gamble? You know, that's just risky behavior. You're just trusting a person. Just look at his track record. Just look at his track record, and that's the person you trust. And now here you are, giving advice, telling everybody to take a risk, to take a gamble. What are the chances? Just hear me out. What are the chances that a guy who dated badly in his 20s, married badly in his 20s, had a bad marriage, had a terrible divorce, is still paying the consequences of that divorce even though they're not getting any of the benefits? What are the chances that a person like this gets it right the second time? By the way, it's not the second time, it's like the sixth time. You got it wrong in your 20s, you got it wrong in your 30s, you got it wrong in your 40s, you got it wrong with the marriage, you got it wrong with the career, you got it wrong with the lifestyle, you got it wrong with the debt, and now you're here to tell us that after getting it all wrong again and again and again, that finally you got it right. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. And let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question while you're busy telling us that you got it right. Did you get a vasectomy? Did you freeze your sperm? What? Just think about this. If you're out there after a lifetime of calamity and you're dating again without a vasectomy, without freezing your sperm, what are the chances you're going to pull this off? My guess, 0%. If you're still out there dating, if you're still considering yourself active as a senior citizen of 45 years old, if you're still considering yourself active, even as like 41, 42, the fact that if you're in your 40s, early 40s, and you still think that you can date, this is a problem. You need to be winding down. You need to be shutting all that down. You can't keep saying you're gonna pull this off. At some point, you gotta decide, hey man, I'm getting a vasectomy and I'm gonna keep running as far and as wide as I can. More questions for you. But if you're gonna be out there 40s, 50s, dating without a vasectomy, I'd like you to think of the 50-year-old American comedian. You know who I'm talking about, the guy from the Big Family of Brothers. They're all kind of funny if you ask me, right? A big family of comedians, the brothers, you know who I'm talking about, right? So he swore to never get married. He swore off commitment. He swore completely out of that game. And then he went and got someone pregnant. And predictably, they put him on child support instantly because he's rich and famous, right? Now, he'll be paying child support from 50 years old until he's 68 years old. From 50 until 68 years old. And he'll be raising that child until he's 71. This is what I'm talking about. This is the guy who comes out at 50 years old, tells you, man, I'm back. I'm the bachelor. The true me is finally here. Boom. Back in child support until the day you die. Then there's the guy, the two guys, the two actors, right? The gangster actors. They acted in a classic gangster movie. The Italian gangster actors, right? You know who I'm talking about, that movie. I don't mean to be specific about race or some type of ethnicity. No, I'm talking about like the genre of movie, the Italian gangster movie genre. The one who's 83 years old and his homeboy. I'm gonna use that, carefully. Is 81 years old. The word homeboy. It implies a lot, right? And we can't ignore the implications. Both of these guys, if you remember carefully, right, they acted together, they're friends, They had toddlers not too long ago. Those toddlers are still alive, by the way, and so are they. When I did my calculations, I realized that the one would be pretty much on child support until he's 101 years old, if he's still alive, and the other might be on child support until he's 98 years old. Just think about that. Just think about that. You really thought you're in your 50s and your 60s, you pull this off, you're through, and then boom, pregnancy at 88 years old or something like that, 83 years old. I don't know how these people are. You're going to be on child support until you're 100 years old. It never ends. All you do is you keep taking the risk. This is the risk of not taking vasectomy. You know, this is the risk of not getting a vasectomy and not freezing your sperm. And for me, it's very, very clear. It's just putting yourself in danger. But it's not as risky as taking the advice from online philosophers and personalities whose bank accounts you've never seen and whose living situation you don't really understand. And you never will. You'll never see that bank account and you'll never understand that situation. The dangers in following flip-floppers is that they are flip-floppers. On the one hand, they are committed to one way. On the other hand, they were committed to the other way. The same way that they are committed to the bachelor life, I show you, that is how they were committed in their marriage. That is how they were committed in their marriage. They were men of true faith. They were true believers. They were knee benders. That's why they bent that knee. And it's only after they realized, decades, listen to me, these men, some of these men, there are guys who divorced in their 20s, 30s, and they've been out for a long time. They were in for 10 years, they came out. No. Some of these guys were in it from 20 to 50. Came out and said, nah, I'm not doing this no more. And then got another counterpart pregnant. And it's like, man, your life is just miserable. You got no self-control. Or you got no vasectomy. You can't have both. You can't have no self-control and no vasectomy. Seriously, that's just terrible, man. You can't trust these people's judgment. All their judgments are flawed. The men, the women, all of them. Oh, but the counterparts, their judgment is completely off. Imagine coming out after 30 years of marriage telling people, nah, this is what I did wrong. What? This is what you did wrong. These people have flawed judgment. And they further demonstrate this by going too far. Especially the born-again bachelors. Right? The Bachelor 2.0 he returns. Man, these guys, they go too far. They go from one extreme to the next extreme and never just find a balance to say, okay, this is what I consider normal. right? It's from one extreme high to the next extreme high. And to me, that's just risky behavior. That's just putting yourself in one dangerous situation for the adrenaline of it, and then in another dangerous situation for more of that adrenaline. And when we look at today's edification, the traits of a gambler, what you'll see is that these traits are not just indicative of the people who are currently dating and in relationships now, they're also indicative of the people who are giving dating advice. And you're going to see the same patterns play themselves out and the same descriptions that these people will have. Just think about the fact that these are people who have quite frankly failed astronomically in every aspect of dating, from dating to marriage to divorce. And here they are telling you this is the way to do it. Is that not just taking another risk? Are they not just inducing you to take a risk in them, the same risk that they took in every relationship, the same risk that they took in their marriage? Are they not just now inducing you to take that same risk as them? Think about that. Think about that. So here we are, the 10 signs of gambling addiction. They did not give an author here, but it comes from addictions.com. And there they are, www.addictions with an s.com. And there is the link to the actual article that we're going to read. This article was published on the 17th of July 2025. I apologize for that date. That is horrific. I don't make the date like that. That's a complete oversight. And I know you'll say, well, it's the date, it's not a big deal. The way to write the date is to put the day, the month, and then the year. It's not month, day, year. That doesn't make any sense. Why would you put the month, the day, and then the year? This is what causes confusion, right? So like for example, the 2nd of July could just as easily be the 7th of February. Put the day first, then the month, and then the year. So yeah, that's a terrible oversight, and that's a terribly written date. What kind of, this is what I'm talking about, man. People have no structure. Somebody just decided, I'll put the month first. Why? Who puts the month first? Who says, you know what? Who says October 2025, the 7th? Why do that? Why not just do that? Why not put the month, the year, and then the date? That doesn't make any sequential sense. And it's like details like this that I'm all about. Like, I'll notice something like that and say, that doesn't make any sense. But there's some people who do this. Put the date, the day first, then the month, then the year, and everybody will understand you. If you're not sure, just write the date out in years, in words. Just write the month out in words. That way you avoid confusion as a whole. Let's get into these gamblers, these risk takers. Compulsive gambling is often referred to as a silent killer. I like that, the silent killer. Simply because an addiction to gambling does not always readily stand out, so does the addiction to dating. One of the things that you notice about people that are addicted to dating and dating trauma, they're very similar to people who have addictions to illicit substances. So while they may not be taking the substance themselves, they'll be involved in like rehab, they'll be involved in like community work. They'll try and stay as close to the substance as they can, even if they're on the opposite side of that substance. Right? And they'll talk about it all the time. Oh, I used to use this substance, you can change too. Right? It's still part of their life. They're not just addicted to the substance, but they're addicted to the lifestyle. Right? That's one thing that you have to understand about addicts. It's not just the substance, it's the lifestyle. It's the people, the connections, the rooms where it'll open doors to. Like there are certain places where only bottles of alcohol will get you in. I promise you, if you stop consuming alcohol, you see suddenly a lot of doors start to close. You start pretending to drink alcohol, those doors reopen again, right? And it's the same here. There's a whole lifestyle thing going on there. And the same is true with people who date. Like, you come out of a relationship and you've been burnt, just as you've been burnt in every other relationship. But because you have a taste for it, right? You want to go back in. And you'll say all kinds of things. Oh, I still believe in love. Oh, I still believe in this. No, no, no. You're just addicted to the feeling. It says the signs of gambling addiction are often overlooked as something else, such as a desire to play games, an urge to win money, or anything that a compulsive disorder that is out of order, right? Or it says here, or anything but, that's right, I knew I read that wrong. Or anything but a compulsive disorder that is completely out of order, that's right. They'll say they're still looking for love, they're still looking for the right man, they're still looking for the right person, when indeed, or they'll, gamblers will call themselves hustlers. I'm gonna go and hustle. When in truth, you could just be doing overtime at work. The time that you're spending gambling, you could be doing overtime at work. And they'll tell you things like, nah, 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 you can make a lot of money much faster. Nonsense. Nonsense. There's a reason why the richest people in the world aren't gamblers. They have jobs, and their jobs are called CEO, right? That's where the richest people in the world spend their time, not in the casinos. So, this is just another one of those fallacies of the addiction, telling you that it's one thing when in fact it's just an addiction. But oftentimes the desire to gamble is so strong that the addiction and the addiction is so serious that severe personal and social consequences, even death, can result. This is true. This is true for relationships or any type of other addiction that you have. And in fact, you may even wonder, is this what the person is trying to achieve? Are they trying to achieve their own end? You know? It may be difficult to recognize the signs of gambling addiction for one reason or another. According to the U.S. National Library of Medicine, chronic gamblers are often lead seemingly normal lives, but in the background, there is a serious problem at hand. Eventually, the addiction will cause destructive outcomes. There you go, calamity. Didn't I guarantee you calamity in the end? And they call it destructive outcomes. And there will be no mistaking the signs of gambling addiction. So eventually the problem is out there, it's exposed. And this is what happens, right? So they try hide the addiction, they try hide their need for companionship and all kinds of things, and they hide it as dating advice, when in fact they're just airing out grievances, right? They're going out hyper dating, right? Hyper intimacy, trying to fill that void in time, that gap in time that they wasted on the marriage, thinking it was going to be forever. And it felt like forever, but it really wasn't. Right? So now you're going from one extreme to the other, and eventually it shows. There are people that are just addicted to intimacy, and they just want to do it, recklessly. And they'll use any kind of excuse, oh, it's biological, or men have testosterone, all kinds of things, when in fact you got no self control. And yes, it's biological. Maybe your lack of self control is biological. That's possible too. We all have those inclinations, but at what cost? At what cost? And what exactly is it that you are still hoping to gain? But the truth eventually comes out. At that point, the biggest concern will be where to find help. If you're unsure whether you or a loved one is experiencing gambling addiction, look for the following signs. If you notice these red flags that indicate there's a problem, don't ignore them. Help is available. The thing that I've noticed about addicts and addictive behavior is that when you catch them and you find out the severity of the problem, what they do is they just pull you into the problem. And so what happens is you feel compelled to help. You start spending money, you start spending resources, you start spending time, and they'll call it a disease. They'll say, I have a disease, I'm feeding my disease, I have a problem. And all the while, you're just spending money on them. And when your money is finished and done, then they'll just move on to the next place and say the same thing. So they don't hide it. They don't disappear, where you won't be able to see them. Once you catch them, they just do it out in the open. They'll hide it from everyone else and induce you to hide it too. Now you're part of the secret. You ever seen like where there's a family and there's like a family secret, and you arrive and everybody knows that the ancient one is gonna come, he's gonna be drunk of alcohol and he's gonna act the fool. And you can sort of see that there's a tension there, right? You walk into a room and there's a tension there, but everybody's perfectly normal. You're like, why is everybody so tense? Because they know that at any moment in time, the ancient one will arrive and ruin everything, right? So it may not be that when you walk in the situation, it may not very well be that things are clear to you, right? You may be like, what is going on? This is a fuzzy situation, but the gambler is coming, right? And it's now a family secret. What does that mean? It means that the family, instead of fixing the addict, have become now people who aid the addict, right? And they try to keep that addict looking normal, but all the addict has done is just expose themselves and ruin their lives. The first thing that you will notice about gambling addiction and risk takers is they have an obsession with taking risks. They are obsessed with taking risks, these people. This is one thing. They'll tell you all the virtues of taking risks. They'll tell you, yeah, I've lost some too, but I've made a lot of money. They won't. And they'll even tell you things like, yeah, I've been homeless because of this problem. But in the end, I won big, and that's not how it works. In the end, they stopped. In the end, they just stopped. Maybe they went into the casino one day, won a few thousand, walked away, and said, yeah, now I'm done. But in the end, they stopped. They didn't win big. They didn't win 100 million and then disappeared to some exotic island where they lived like a king forever. Not at all. They ruined their lives and then had to stop. That's it. But they'll still gamble at home and play the games and all that. Just itching to get back on that floor, that casino floor, trying to beat the system. One of the most common signs of gambling addiction is the obsession that comes with it. Those addicted to gambling are obsessed with gambling and may be preoccupied with gambling to the point at which they don't care about anything else. Doesn't that just sound like the people giving dating advice, financial advice, the people that you're risking your financial future on? Aren't they always just talking about taking risks all day long? People who are obsessed with dating are talking about dating all day long. People that are obsessed with vasectomies coming on the internet talking about vasectomies all day long. This is compulsive. This is addictive. This is an indication of obsession. To the point where you're like, are you really going to live your life through that vasectomy? Are you really going to live your life through that gambling? Are you really going to live your life through that addiction? Every chance you get there, you are in the casino. Every time somebody says the word "v," and now you think, okay, vasectomy? No, no, it's not vasectomy. There's variety. There are other words that start with a V that don't mean vasectomy, but because you're obsessed, right, you want to process everything through this one lens. Compulsive thoughts about gambling or gambling obsessively to a point in which it causes, let me do that again. Compulsive thoughts about gambling or gambling obsessively to a point in which it causes other people in causes other people in your life are just a few of the common signs of gambling addiction. I don't know if I read that right. Maybe I don't have the right tone about it, you know. But anyway, don't gamble. I think that's what they're trying to say in the end. Don't gamble. No, but seriously now, people who are obsessed with dating, they'll spend all day telling you about the kind of man they have, the kind of date they've been on, the kind of thing they live for it, man. The kind of adventures they had, what they liked, what they didn't like. There's always more things they didn't like than what they did like. These are people who order a $400 meal and then not enjoy it, right? Then you get the ones that are unable to stop dating. Oh, most people are unable to stop dating. Most people that start dating, they're likely, if you have one boyfriend or girlfriend, you're gonna have another one. If you get married once, the chances are there is a likelihood that you'll get married again, right? But for people who are obsessed with dating and giving dating advice, effectively, they can't stop dating, you know? And it's one of the things that I'm really aware of myself when it comes to like being addicted to relationships and dating. It's just being able to say, you know what, let me stop, I'm out. There's a point where you have to decide, okay, are you gonna keep going or are you gonna stop or you're out? Despite having the inclination for intimacy and whatnot, right? But some people, they just can't help themselves. There are people who they won't leave the house unless they know there's a counterpart somewhere at the end of it, or at least the potential of meeting a counterpart. Then it's worth it. Otherwise, they'll just tell you, what's the point of going out if there aren't any women? You ever heard people say that? What's the point of going somewhere if I'm not going to meet a woman? What's the point of traveling if I'm not going to meet a woman? You know? And it's like always there in the back of their minds. And it's like, can't you just stop? Just live, man. Just live, work, live, do what you need to do, survive, be happy. Have you tried to quit gambling, made an honest commitment to quit and failed? If you are unable to stop gambling despite your desire to do so, you could be addicted to gambling. Could be. You could be addicted to gambling, right? I like how they use that qualifier. There's like, a potentiality, like, oh, it might happen to you. Oh, no. If you're unable to stop, the fact that you're unable to stop is an indication of addiction. And this is the thing, like, people who are obsessed with dating, right? They won't stop. They'll act like they stop, but they'll date, behind your back, that kind of thing, right? They'll say, well, I'm done dating, and then they'll go date multiple people. And it's like, no, you're not. You're never done dating. You're always in the game. And this is like one thing that I wonder if maybe there's something wrong with me. Like I could go years without dating anyone. Really, even now, like I'm done. Like I don't have the inclination to do so. Right? I really don't have the inclination to do so. Yes, I want to create that theater of life, but that's just for fun. In truth, that's just for fun, right? It's not going to be my baby. And as long as there's a baby, at least I know there's an outcome to it. You know what I mean? It's just a purpose. It's a truly meaningful purpose. But how far how far are you willing to go in order to date? I mean, there's people who move to other parts of the world just to date. You know, easily move to the other side of the world to date. And they will not stop. Of that, I'm sure they will not stop. And if they do stop, all they'll do is spend all day telling you about how they stopped dating. How my life is now that I stopped dating. How great my life is now that I stopped dating. You haven't stopped dating. You're still dating in your mind. You're just saying that I'm dating, I'm undating. That's what you're saying. You're saying I'm undating, which is the opposite of dating. It doesn't mean that you've stopped dating. It just means that you are undating or maybe undateable. Did I read this? The inability to quit even if you want to is one of the many signs of gambling addiction that most individuals tend to immediately overlook or write off as something else. Yeah, if you want to stop, like if you smoke and you decide, okay, I'm done, and then you smoke again, you're not done. You're an addict, right? It's just that simple. Like, I'm one of those people who says I don't drink, and it doesn't really bother me. I could care less. I don't even remember the last time I had a drink. I was with a counterpart. Yeah, and I threw up all day. All day. That was a truly embarrassment. I hadn't had a drink in years. I thought, man, maybe I could still handle it. One drink, threw up for 3 days. Yeah, not doing that again. It wasn't even the full drink. It wasn't the full 310 milliliters. Like, I barely drank half of that thing. Yeah, not for me. Not for me. Right, but so it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. I'm not gonna be thinking about it all day long, right? Except to make an indication, right? Except to make an indication as an example, and maybe even a qualifier for the kind of person that I am. Then we have number three, which is gambling despite the consequences. Yes. So this is the same thing as dating, right? So you know the consequences of dating. You know the consequences of being intimate with a counterpart. You know the consequences of marriage and divorce and that dynamic, and yet you still participate. Even worse, you participate without a vasectomy. Knowing the risks, which is the threat of danger, opening you up to danger, and still going through with it, to me, is an indication of nonsensical thinking. It's an indication of a lack of logic. But then you continue anyway, despite the obvious consequences. That is an indication of addiction. Has gambling caused problems in your life, such as financial difficulties, loss of a job, or relationship problems? Sure, but relationships could cause the same issues too. Many people tend to overlook even the most prominent signs of gambling addiction when it causes negative consequences in your life, and yet continue to gamble anyway. Now, if that's not an indication of addiction, right? You keep facing one, like they kick you out of your house, you lose your job, you get divorced, you go to prison, and you still continue with your addiction, right? So, alimony, child support, lawyer fees, still paying a bond, still paying all kinds of things, bills, and then still want to go and date. It's like you could see what's going to happen to you. Like, even if it works out, you're still going to be miserable 18 to 21 years. And then you still go ahead and do it anyway. To me, that doesn't make any sense. But to people, to knee benders, it seems to. It seems to resonate with them. Then there's the psychological withdrawal when not gambling. Oh, yes. When people are not dating, there's an absolute psychological withdrawal. That's what you're seeing when they come out saying, I'm living my best life, I'm doing this. They go from one extreme to the next, right? Then they talk about how they don't want this, they don't want that, and they'll tell you what kind of man they do want. Then they become more obsessive about dating, right? Because now they are going through withdrawals, right? Their body's entering into shock. Pretty much their body goes into shock because they're not getting, I don't know what it is that you get, or what you thought that good or bad that you get from relationships. Like, it doesn't have to be a good relationship for somebody to have strong feelings. Sometimes the signs of gambling addiction are very similar to the signs of other addictions, in truth, such as a drug addiction or alcohol addiction, illicit substances. Psychologically, when a person with gambling disorder is not gambling, he or she is irritable, depressed, and restless. Doesn't that sound like the same people who, stop dating? Right, and one of the problems is that part of the thing, the why you're not dating, is that you're not intimate anymore. So this is going to cause you to be irritable, depressed, restless, and eventually you're just going to go back into dating and bend the knee. And that's the truth. You just want to be intimate. or at least intimate in a consistent way. Some people feel like but that when they're intimate, it's a sign of manhood. Like, I'm a man now, I'm being intimate, because you couldn't be intimate as a boy. It says these are all signs of emotional withdrawal, which result when someone is obsessed with gambling and has a perceived need to gamble in order to be happy. The reason why I think gambling is so comparable to relationship addiction, and why I think people who like to be in relationships are very much gamblers, is because it's not a physical addiction. It's not the kind of physical addiction where you have to go buy the substance and whatever. It's more really the type of like you're addicted to the lifestyle, the perception of it. Some people actually get pretty good and they get skills and whatever, they still lose a lot of money though. But it's not a physical like addiction like other substances, but it can have similar physical ramifications, manifestations, right? So the what's happening in the mind can demonstrate itself physically. Same is true when people give up dating, right? Or become such a different person. So hardcore, so angry, so aggro, testosterone shooting through the roof, right? And that's why you gotta like let that phase pass, that phase of high testosterone, and then find that equilibrium again, so you can be normal and stable, so you can see yourself, in fact, as the grandfather figure that you are, instead of trying to see yourself as a young man that's still in the game, because you haven't been that young man in decades. And if you saw that young man, if you traveled back in time and saw yourself in your 20s, you'd probably want to slap yourself for being such a fool, right? Because you would see and you'd be like, man, that's the guy that bent the knee. You're going to look at yourself in your 20s and you're going to realize, that guy's about to bend the knee, right? And you'd want to correct that, right? That's why time travel is illegal, by the way. Everybody's going to be trying to correct their marriages. Gambling to improve happiness. Do you or does someone you know seemingly gamble in order to be happy or have fun? If gambling is a necessary component of your happiness or elevated mood, there's a good chance that gambling addiction is to blame. This is one of the most commonly overlooked signs of gambling addiction, that people to mistake for some other problem. I think it means that people do mistake for some other problem. Gambling to mask problems, feel happy, or otherwise improve your emotions is a sure sign that there is a bigger problem at hand. This is very much the same as people who date and then when they break up. Yes, there's an unhappiness in the breakup, but then you never find that happiness again until you date. Like, there's a point where being single feels really good, feels healthy, it feels balanced, but you got to get past over all of that, right? You got to go past all the emotions, all the issues, all. And one of those things that you can do is just to stay away from your ex. Stay away from your ex for so long that it's weird to see them again, right? That it's like it's awkward. Like, you see them and should I say hi? Shouldn't I say hi? That kind of thing, right? But part of the issue that you're gonna face is that you're gonna keep meeting your ex again, keeping intimate with your ex. Those emotions go up, they go down. You're in and out of that situation, because there is a part where it improves your mood, like being desired, being wanted, that kind of thing. Knowing that there's some remorse in your ex, that kind of validation that accredits you, right? That kind of thing can make people feel good. But at the same time, it just proves that you just can't let go. There's an addictive quality there between you and your ex, and neither one of you can let go. Number 6 is stealing or otherwise breaking the law to gamble. How many people have you known to become criminals from dating and relationships? Right? So if you don't pay your child support, they'll just put you in jail. There's one way that dating and relationships can make you into a criminal. Right? People will the responsibility of fatherhood, marriage, that kind of thing, it can make people do crazy things. It can make people really do crazy, desperate things in the name of the people that they love. Men take on responsibilities in companies that they cannot absolutely dreamed of managing just because they want to provide for their counterparts a life of luxury as well as for their kids, which there's nothing wrong with, right? It's just how far are you willing to go, right? Are you going to break financial laws, tax laws, that kind of thing, in order to keep providing and then reach a certain level of success, avoid debt, that kind of thing? I mean, how far are you really willing to go? But yes, addicts will absolutely break the law in order to feed their addiction if they don't have a choice or another way. Someone who is addicted to gambling will often break the law in order to have money, there you go, that they need to gamble or to recover their losses. Yeah, there's also that, right? They gamble to gamble and then they gamble to recover their losses, and of course, you're just gonna lose more. And it's the same with dating, right? You get back into a relationship because you invested so much in that other relationship that you think maybe you can cash out in the next relationship. But the truth is, you're just gonna pay double. All you done is double down and doubled your expenses, right? And that's the truth. That's one of the reasons why I'm like, man, let me just get out the game. On the one hand, I'm way too old for all this, even though I do want to create a theater of life, which is just really entertainment. But ultimately, to date seriously, to be able to have children seriously, to be biologically viable at a certain age is just it's just not a possibility. It's just not the thing to do, right? There's a point where you gotta say, okay, enough is enough, legally, age wise, and so on. But people, they'll go overboard, and then you lose, and then you try and make up for your losses, which takes you even further overboard. Now you're swimming in muddy waters. Stealing, yeah. Committing fraud, absolutely. Or otherwise breaking the law to fuel the habit are all signs of gambling addiction that should not be overlooked and could lead to greater consequences, including jail time or probation. This is what you must know about child support, right? And these other issues, alimony and whatnot. If you don't pay, they'll just put you in jail. If you don't pay, they'll just put you in jail, and then when you come out of jail, they'll hit you with that bill anyway. So, you're going to be compelled to pay one way or another. So the best thing you can do is just pay, right? The best thing you can do is just pay. You already messed up your life and everybody else's, so you're just gonna pay, you know? But child support, you don't pay, they send you to jail, and now you're a criminal. This is how dating can get you into prison. And knowing this and still continuing, that is unsound behavior. That is troubling. That is very, very troubling, right? Then, of course, denying that there's a problem. Now, this is something that I don't struggle with. I admit it, and I still admit that when I see dating in relationships, all I see is that there is a problem. I said that this invention is not sound. How can I produce so much of myself, provide so much of myself, giving so much of myself, paying so much of myself in terms of all kinds of things, including in and of myself physically, and then still get it wrong? And then you see everybody doing the same thing, just giving, 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 and then still getting it wrong. And then I admit and say, well, there's a problem here. There's a real problem here. And I even came up with I took the line from the movie, the winning move is not to play the game. The winning move is simply not to play the game. But then there are those that will deny there's a problem. And they'll do it under various different circumstances. Or I'll date like this. Or I'll date but I won't be committed. Or I'll date but I don't want to have kids. And there you are on child support until you're 72. or on child support until you're 101. You know what I mean? And then you're still gonna say, nah, there's no problem, there's no problem. Yes, there's a problem. The solution is to freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. Denial is a common sign of gambling addiction and relationship addiction. To state that there is no problem when when there really is happens to be common ground amongst people experiencing any type of addiction, the deceptive arts, the lies. They will hold on to their secret and their lies until death. And let me tell you something that you should know about addicts and dating addicts and drug addicts and any kind of addict. What you find out about them is a fraction. So that one moment where you catch them, you have to understand that they've been on this substance for years. And then you happen to catch them in that one moment, that brief moment, that brief situation, right? To a skilled operator, they would identify that and say, this is never going to happen again. Not only will this person catch me in this situation, no one else will ever catch me in this situation again, right? The deceptive arts, where you learn from your mistakes and then you improve on them. But other addicts, you'll catch them, and then what they will do is then just do it openly. Okay, fine, you caught me, now I don't care, right? And now you are part of the secret. Now you are part of the secret. That's how it works. It's the power of the deceptive arts, you know. But yes, they'll just deny it. They'll just deny it. And if you suspect that a loved one has a gambling problem or a relationship addiction problem, you have hard evidence to back it up, yet he or she continues to deny the problem, that could be time to seek professional help. Could be time. Yeah, it's been time to seek professional help. Like they are at the point where they don't care anymore. They realize that you're going to catch them, somebody's going to catch them, they've been caught before, now you're part of the problem with them, you know? Or they just keep lying, keep lying, keep lying, and it becomes like a game or a joke, right? Where you just laugh about it eventually, but you realize they're just not willing to let go. The people that lie, even when you got evidence against them, that is just an admission of an unwillingness to change. That's them telling you that, hey, this is who I am and this is what I'm about. The same with these knee benders, man. You could do anything to try and convince a knee bender to not bend the knee. Or he's gonna just turn it back on you, right? He's just gonna turn it back on you. Financial problems are a common thing among people who are dating and who are also addicts. There's just never enough money to date. No, I mean, people are even complaining about the cost of dating because they date so much. Like when people who don't really date a lot, they go out and they date. I don't date a lot. So if I happen to go out on a meal with someone, it's really once in a while and I'll pay it. But if you're dating all the time and you start to know all the cool places and all the cheap places and all the places that have discounts at all the hours and you know all those details, perhaps you've just spent too much time dating. Not perhaps. I think you have spent too much time dating. You know, if you're dating and it's causing you financial problems or you're unable to reach your financial goals or things of that nature, you know, or personal goals, health goals, any kind of goals, that's a problem. That's a problem, right? And it just says that your addiction is more powerful than your goal. And one of the most prevalent signs of gambling addiction is financial problems that result from compulsive gambling disorder. A friend may all of a sudden have problems with his or her personal finances, or they may ask you to borrow money, or may ask to borrow money often. Compulsive gamblers depend on others to provide them with money either to gamble or to pay expenses because they lost their money gambling. The same is true for people who are addicted to illicit substances. Eventually, when you try and help them, what happens is that eventually you end up having to spend money on their proclivities and their habits, right? You end up having to help them, because they're going to borrow a little bit here, borrow a little bit there. Like drug addicts are always borrowing money. They borrow money. That's their language. Borrow me some money. Borrow me some money. Borrow me some money. Because they know if they say give me money, you'll say no. That sounds like a robbery. But if they say borrow me some money, there's like an option to pay it off under different circumstances, or maybe they'll do you a favor. There's an indication of some type of reciprocity, but there's really not no reciprocity that you're gonna get. This person is in trouble and needs help, right? And the same is true of people that are dating. Like if you're addicted to dating, if you've been hurt and you've been affected and you've been broke and you've been crushed and you've been through alimony, divorce, child support, all that, and you still keep going, maybe you got a problem. Maybe you really got a problem, especially if it ruins your money, right? And especially if you now start needing others to fund your habit, your proclivities, or to help fix the colossal nature of your mistakes. Number 9, mood swings. Oh yes, people that are dating, mood swings. Where can I start? They happen all the time. They happen all the time. Somebody calls you, you're upset. Somebody doesn't call you, you're upset. Somebody texts you, you're upset. Somebody doesn't text you, you're okay. So they text you in one way and not something else, you're upset. Like mood swings are relationships, right? And addiction. And some people are addicted to the mood swings. They are addicted to being made to feel happy the one moment and regretful the next moment. Up the next moment, deep down, depression the next moment after that, right? So these waves, some people can be really addicted to these waves. Compulsive gambling, especially when the gambling takes place as part of a double life, oh yes, of which friends and family are unaware, can lead to excessive mood swings. Mood swings are often overlooked or mistaken for upset that is not the result of the addiction. So, because you're living a double life, you're the phantom menace, the master of the deceptive arts. If something happens in the solitude, it's going to affect you in your real life. So if something happens in the gambling arena, it's going to affect you in your real life. So somebody might be upset because they sense a disturbance in their solitude, they sense betrayal in their paranoia, and that kind of thing, right? They sense that their secrecy might be under jeopardy if they're a practitioner of the deceptive arts. That may translate to the offline world, right? That may translate into their real world, like, oh, nobody's watching my videos, I'm sad in real life. Now I can't work or anything like that, right? Same thing that will happen in gambling. You lose a lot of money, you'll be upset. Your girlfriend breaks up with you, you're upset, right? So anything really, it can happen like that. Like the life of the Phantom Menace is not an easy life. You're out here trying to put things right, and then of course things go wrong, right? It says here, but most often mood swings are one of the signs of gambling addiction that should be spotted early on. The truth is, people won't admit that. You'll be able to spot it. Like if you'll be able to see that somebody who if you know their patterns, you'll be able to see when those patterns change. And you'll say to them, hey man, have your patterns of behavior changed? And they'll say, nah, I'm fine. And then do their best to return to what they know is their regular pattern of behavior. But they'll deny that, man. People will absolutely deny that. The same way that people, they'll say, oh no, we're just friends, right? There's a pattern there. And once people notice it, then people lie about it and then try to do their best to hide that pattern, right? which, this is what happens when if your counterpart starts dating someone behind your back, their patterns change immediately. And then you say, hey, have your patterns changed? And they say no. That's how you know something is wrong. When you see something and then they deny it, right? That's how you should know this person has a dating problem, a loyalty problem, a gambling problem, some type of problem, right? There's always signs, always signs. And number 10, hiding gambling behavior. Oh, secret affairs. Where do I begin with secret affairs? People will tell you that they're celibate, but then they'll be dating. And they'll hide their dating from you just to prove their celibacy. Like, there's really no limit to what these people can do. As compulsive gambling progresses, the individual comes under scrutiny from his or her friends or family members. It is not uncommon for them to begin hiding gambling behaviors. Indeed, hiding the behavior of one of the most common, is one of the most common signs of gambling addiction. It's also one that's really hard for outsiders to spot because they don't know what's going on with the individuals. But recognizing that it's wrong to hide behaviors from loved ones is a step in the right direction when it comes to finding help for compulsive gambling disorders. Now, I hide all kinds of behaviors from my family and loved ones. I don't trust those people not a single second with anything, good or bad, right? So I don't know, if I can give you this advice. Should you, tell your loved ones if you have a problem or some type of issue? If you need help, sure, maybe, but the chances of them helping you is very unlikely. Chances are you're probably going to get judged and criticized. And every time something goes wrong, they'll probably just blame gambling, right? And associate it with you forever. So, but I suppose if you need the help, you might as well go get the help. But this is true of any kind of addiction, right? People are going to hide their addiction, right? And the best people, you won't even know they have an addiction, right? They'll just be perfectly normal. That means they found a system. They have a time, they have a place, they know what they're doing, right? Gamblers, they'll have a time, a place, a budget, and they'll stick within the budget. Of the budget is find the real good ones. They'll win some, they'll lose some, they'll walk away, but they know there's always another day to gamble, right? Same with expert drug addicts. They'll just continue, and you won't even know, right? The masters of the deceptive arts, all kinds of problems that they'll hide from you. Not just the vasectomy, all kinds of problems. Now, I'm hiding a vasectomy, as you very well know. I'm hiding it from you too. You've never seen my face, right? But noticing the behaviors within myself of hiding something, it's not to imply that I can notice the behaviors of other people in hiding things. I'm just saying I can understand. I can understand. But what are the next steps? The next step after identifying a gambling disorder is to get the support you or your loved one needs. Effective freeing help is available. Find treatment near you today. I don't know if people are willing to get treatment for their addiction to relationships. Even the people that give advice, they're still addicted to relationships. They just can't let it go. It's their most innate biological imperative. They want to date, they want to be loved. But I can tell you that after a while, even that desire can be tempered. Right? The desire for physical intimacy, not so much, but the desire to be approved of, that can go away. Because that's a huge risk. Hoping that people are gonna, it's a risk and a gamble. Hoping that people are gonna love you for who you really are forever. When the likelihood is that when they really get to know who you really are behind closed doors, they will become familiar and discontented, right? Very, very quickly. But then the people who are just addicted to dating, they can't let go, man. And all these behaviors, I've clearly demonstrated that the behaviors of gambling Risk taking, in other words, opening yourself up to danger, is very closely associated and synonymous with, in fact, dating and relationships. It's the same thing. You're taking a risk with a stranger, but over there, you're taking a risk with your money. Technically, you're taking a risk with your money either way. All right. And I will say again, the best move is simply not to play the game. But if you are going to play the game, play it safe. Get a vasectomy, freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy. That way there's no risk. But I wonder to myself, would you even take that? Would you even like take the security of a vasectomy knowing that there's no risk? Or you would reject the security of a vasectomy because you're addicted to the risk? Because you want the excitement, right? Risk comes with unknowing. Unknowing comes with excitement, and excitement comes with adrenaline, with all kinds of things. So it is the not knowing and then pulling it off, right? They like not knowing, they like taking the risk, and then they like not getting the counterpart inseminated, which to them is pulling it off for now. You're only pulling it off for now. It's only a matter of time before you see the consequences that we described here. But then we have to ask yourself, once you see the consequences, are you still going to keep going? And the truth is yes. The knee benders are going to keep going in dating and relationships until it ultimately leads to their end. It's not just an innate desire in them, it's a full-on addiction. An addiction that I suggest you cure yourself of. Cure yourself of the addiction of these desires of love, intimacy, relationships before they take you down. And don't say, oh, it won't happen to me. Give me a break. You know how many people have been taken down by intimacy? How many men have been taken down by intimacy? You know, it's not a question of, oh, can it happen to me? Yes, it can and it will happen to you. The real question is, what are you going to do to protect yourself? I suggest that you freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. I suggest freezing your sperm and get a vasectomy. It's a sound move, and if you've been anywhere near this platform, you've heard it before, and you'll hear it again. Freeze your sperm, get a vasectomy, and that is the move to make. But then if you do, you'll be cured from your addiction or your fears. And I wonder if you really want the cure. Do you want the cure, or do you rather just live with the addiction? Because you know what? It brings you happiness. Right? Dating actually brings people happiness. Short-lived, long-lived, however lived, it brings happiness. That approval, knowing that you are desired, brings people happiness. Right? And they will not let that go. In fact, they will go out and seek the happiness that approval brings. And that's very difficult to shake out of someone. It's very difficult to shake out of someone. Sometimes I wonder, is it worth the effort? Offline, absolutely not. I'm not saving anyone in real life. I'm not preaching this vasectomy thing, teaching vasectomy thing, advocating vasectomy thing anywhere near my face. Motivating for vasectomies anywhere near my face. My voice is the best I can do for you. And I'll tell you, go freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. Now, you're going to have to decide, are you going to trust a faceless voice on the internet, or are you going to do your own research? I suggest doing your own research, finding out what the research says, and then making a decision. But even then, part of me knows you won't, because that implies no risk. Right? Making a decision without gambling around it, it implies no risk. And I don't know if that will satisfy your proclivities, but I don't think it will. But if you do understand that risk is opening you up to danger, and you're a strategic thinker, and you're like me, you love being strategic, you love having the advantage, you like standing in the position of power, saying, well, what are you going to do now? Then you freeze your sperm and get a vasectomy. This is the end of the video, and again, I'd like to thank you for your time, your patience, your understanding. I appreciate it, and I always will. The voice of the vasectomite needs an ear to be heard. There's no point in having a voice without an ear, and I truly appreciate yours. Please, if you have enjoyed this this commentary, this footage, or this video, please like it. Please also share it with somebody who you know is addicted to dating, who you know won't stop no matter what the situation is and no matter how bad it gets. Maybe they're just a risk taker. Maybe they're just a gambler. Expose them to themselves. And as usual, please leave a comment to remain part of the conversation. And I will happily respond to all and as many comments as I can. Again, I'm the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, thanking you for joining me today, and I'd like to wish you a wonderful, wonderful day.